The bank manager didn't speak at first. He just looked at me with pale hands and turned that black security monitor toward me. My breath caught so hard I thought my chest might crack open. There on the screen was my daughter-in-law Beverly standing outside Dorothy's safety deposit box room 2 days earlier, wearing dark sunglasses and that perfect blue coat she always wore when she wanted to look important. But that wasn't the part that made me want to punch something. The part that nearly dropped me was seeing my own son David standing right beside her, holding a folder like he owned the place. My name is Charlie Mitchell and I'm 58 years old. That was the day I learned that losing your wife to cancer is one kind of pain, but finding out your family's been planning to rob you blind is a whole different kind of hell. Dorothy had been gone for 6 months. 6 months of me rattling around our house like a lost marble, trying to figure out how to live without the woman who'd organized every corner of my life for 32 years. She'd run my garage business books, handled all our legal paperwork, and somehow made sure I never missed a birthday or anniversary. Dorothy believed in being prepared for everything. Hell, she'd even labeled the spice rack in alphabetical order. So when she told me about that safety deposit box before the cancer took her, I figured it was just more of her planning. Charlie, she'd said, if anything happens to me, you go to that box. Everything you need is there. I thought she meant insurance papers, maybe a will, maybe one of those sweet letters she used to leave in my lunchbox. I never imagined it could be dangerous. Mr. Leonard Taylor, the bank manager, cleared his throat and his voice came out all apologetic. Mr. Mitchell, I didn't let them in. Your wife left very specific instructions. No access unless you were present with proper identification after the death certificate was filed. He paused and studied my face. But your son and his wife were pretty upset when I refused. They claimed you were confused about finances and they were helping manage things. Confused, that word hit me like a wrench to the gut. I kept staring at that frozen image on the monitor. Beverly had her hand on David's arm, the way she always did when she wanted to control a situation without looking controlling. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect everything, always calling me Dad in that sweet voice that sounded like she'd practiced it. David looked smaller than I remembered. Even though he was a grown man of 35, he looked nervous, tired, like someone who'd been losing sleep. Who was it? I asked quietly, though I could see them clear as day. Mr. Taylor looked down. Your son and daughter-in-law, sir. For a long minute, I didn't say anything. I just pressed my hands against the desk edge so nobody would see them shake. Around us, the bank hummed with normal life. A printer running, someone laughing across the lobby, a pen tapping against something. It felt wrong that the world could still move like that when mine had just cracked open. I'd still like to open the box, I said. Mr. Taylor nodded, of course. But before we go in, there's something else you should know. They didn't just ask once, they came back twice. That made me look up sharp. Twice, yes, sir. The second time, your daughter-in-law brought documents claiming temporary authority over family property. Our legal desk rejected them. They were incomplete, possibly altered. I heard Dorothy's voice in my head, that same steady tone she used when she caught someone trying to sell me something I didn't need. Charlie, slow down. Look closely. The truth always leaves fingerprints. Dorothy had said that plenty of times over our 32 years together. Usually when something went missing, or when a neighbor's story didn't add up, or when David told one of his little lies as a kid. Back then, the lies were about broken windows and muddy shoes. Now apparently they were about legal papers and dead women's property. Take me to the box, I said. Walking down that quiet hallway, my boots clicking on polished tile, I felt like I was walking into two places at once. The bank vault ahead of me and the long tunnel of my marriage behind me. Dorothy and I weren't perfect, but we'd built something solid. Through layoffs, medical bills, David's college expenses, and the kind of problems that make you sit at the kitchen table at 2 a.m. wondering how you'll make it work. I'd owned my garage for 25 years, started small, built it up customer by customer. It wasn't fancy, but it fed us, paid David's way through school, and kept a roof over our heads. Dorothy had been my bookkeeper, my voice of reason, my partner in everything that mattered. David used to love that garage. As a little boy, he'd sit on an overturned bucket, asking a million questions while I worked. What's that tool do, Dad? Why's that part black? Can cars hear us? I'd answer every question like it was the most important thing in the world. But somewhere along the way, David changed. Or maybe I just stopped excusing it because love can blind you when it comes to your kids. Mr. Taylor opened the vault room and stepped aside. Rows of metal doors, cold and secretive. He led me to one in the middle, inserted his key, then handed me mine. The one Dorothy had made me keep in my desk drawer for someday, I'd hated that word back then. Now it felt like a punch. My hands shook as I tried to fit the key. Take your time, Mr. Taylor said gently. The lock clicked. He removed the long metal box and placed it on a table in a small private room. Then he closed the door, giving me silence so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. I opened the lid. Inside wasn't what I'd expected. Papers, yes, but not just papers. A thick brown envelope with my name and Dorothy's neat handwriting, a flash drive, a small velvet pouch, and underneath all that, another envelope with red ink that said, "If David or Beverly try to open this without Charlie, something is very wrong." I stared at those words until they blurred. Mr. Taylor saw the envelope and stepped back. "Would you like privacy?" "No," I whispered. "Stay." Because suddenly I didn't want to be alone. My hands shook as I opened the envelope with my name. Inside was a letter. "My dearest Charlie, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and I'm sorry for that. I know you hate when I plan for the worst, but some storms you can feel coming. For the last year, I've been seeing things that troubled me. I wanted to believe I was wrong. I prayed I was wrong. But if David and Beverly rushed to this box before you, then I wasn't wrong at all." A chill ran up my spine. I kept reading. "There are things about David's finances and Beverly's pressure on him that you don't know. I tried to shield you because I hoped David would come to his senses, but hope isn't the same as truth. Inside this box is proof of money taken, signatures copied, and plans discussed behind our backs. If I'm right, they were waiting for me to die so they could force you out of the house and sell the garage before you knew what hit you." My mouth went dry. Mr. Taylor made a small, shocked sound. I held up a hand to stop him. I had to keep going. "I also believe David doesn't fully understand what Beverly has done in his name. He's guilty of weakness and poor choices, but I fear she's pushed him further than he realizes. Listen carefully before you act, but do act. Don't let silence bury you beside me." A tear hit the page. Dorothy had known she'd known and died carrying that weight alone. I put down the letter and reached for the red envelope. Inside were copies of property records, bank statements, printed emails. I didn't read every page yet, just enough to feel the room spin around me. References to the house, our house, references to the garage business, transfer plans, loan discussions, a fake caregiving arrangement. My name typed in places I'd never signed. Then I saw one sentence in a printed email that made my stomach turn. "Once Dorothy is gone, Charlie will be too confused to fight us." I knew that sentence came from Beverly before I even checked. It had her voice all over it, cold and calculating. For a second, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because sometimes pain gets so sharp it twists into something else. Confused, Beverly had mistaken grief for weakness. That was going to be her first mistake. The flash drive probably held more evidence. The velvet pouch held Dorothy's wedding ring and a note, "Charlie, keep this close. The drive has the rest. If anything happens to me suddenly, don't trust quick tears or rushed paperwork. Go to Patricia Robinson first. She knows everything." Patricia Robinson, our old family lawyer. Dorothy had used her for years, trusted her completely. Mr. Taylor looked worried. "Should I call someone?" "Yes," I said. My voice sounded different, steadier than it had all morning. "Call me a taxi, not my family, just a taxi." As he stepped out to make the call, I sat alone with Dorothy's letter and that printed betrayal spread across the table. Part of me wanted to drive straight to David's house and wave every page in his face. Part of me wanted to crawl into bed and pretend none of this was real. Instead, I did what men like me do when life knocks us flat. I straightened my shoulders and decided that if people wanted to treat me like I was already buried, I'd make sure I came back swinging. On the taxi ride home, I said nothing, just watched the town roll by. The diner, where Dorothy and I used to have coffee every Sunday. The hardware store, where I bought parts for the garage. The gas station, where David worked summers in high school. Every corner held a memory. Every memory now felt bruised. When I got home, I didn't go inside right away. I stood on the porch looking at the front door of the house Dorothy had decorated, organized, and loved. The same house Beverly wanted to steal from under me. No one was taking this house. No one was using my wife's death as a ladder to climb over my back inside. The rooms were too quiet. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with just 3 pages from the envelope, enough to make the truth impossible to ignore but not enough to drown in yet. One page showed a draft agreement for the house. One showed a copied version of my signature that looked almost perfect except for the slight tremor in the C that gave it away. One showed that awful email from Beverly. I stared at them until sunset turned the kitchen orange. Then I did what Dorothy's note had told me to do. I called Patricia Robinson. Her secretary said she was with a client, but when I told her it was Charlie Mitchell calling about Dorothy's box, she put me through immediately. "Charlie." Patricia's voice was warm but careful. "I've been waiting for your call. You knew about this. Dorothy came to see me 4 months ago. She was very thorough, very careful. She suspected something was wrong with David's finances and Beverly's influence on him. She asked me to prepare certain documents and wait for you to contact me. What kind of documents? A protective trust, mostly, but also a detailed statement about her concerns regarding signatures, property access, and potential fraud. Charlie, Dorothy was building a legal wall around everything you two worked for. That sounded like Dorothy. Always 3 steps ahead, always protecting the people she loved. Can you see me tomorrow morning? I was hoping you'd ask. Come early, around 8 a.m. And Charlie, bring everything from the box. Every paper, the flash drive, everything. After I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt since Dorothy died. Not hope exactly, but direction. A sense that maybe I wasn't as alone in this fight as I'd thought. That's when I heard the key slide into my front door. David never knocked. Dorothy had always hated that. Use the doorbell, son. A man doesn't enter someone else's house like a thief. But tonight, the irony of those words hit different. The lock turned. Beverly's voice floated in before I saw her, sweet and bright and wrong. Charlie, we thought you might be lonely. Then David stepped in behind her carrying white lilies wrapped in clear paper, the kind people bring when someone dies and they want to look thoughtful. He looked tired, older than 35, with the same brown eyes I had, except mine had always been steady. David's looked shifty now, like they were searching for the safest place to land. Beverly recovered first when she saw the papers on my kitchen table. She always did. Oh, she said lightly, glancing at the documents, then back at me. You're busy. I folded my hands so she wouldn't see how badly I wanted to grab those papers. David cleared his throat. Dad, we brought flowers. I can see that. The lilies looked too white, too perfect. Dorothy would have hated them. She used to say lilies smelled like funeral homes. Beverly stepped deeper into the kitchen like she owned it. We got worried. You haven't been answering much, and after everything, we thought maybe you shouldn't be alone tonight. There it was again, hidden under the sugar. You shouldn't be alone. You need help. You might not be able to manage. It sounded caring if you didn't know how to listen. I looked at David thoughtful. Strange timing, though. His fingers tightened around the flower stems. What do you mean? I mean, I spent today at the bank. Beverly didn't even blink at first, but I saw her neck muscles tighten. David's whole face changed. Not much, but enough for a father to notice. The bank? He repeated. Yes. The safety deposit box. The silence that followed was thick as motor oil. Beverly let out a tiny laugh, too quick, too polished. Oh, Charlie, that old thing. Dorothy probably just left boring forms in there. Did she? She smiled again, but her eyes stayed sharp. Probably. I picked up the top page from the table, not the worst one, just one of the property drafts, and watched their faces. Funny, because I found something more interesting than forms. David took a step forward. Dad, maybe we should sit down. No, I said. That word landed harder than I expected. David stopped. I'd spent too many years making things easy for him. Easy landings, easy excuses, easy consequences. A father can ruin a grown son that way without meaning to. Dorothy used to tell me, Charlie, stop padding the walls. One day he'll run into the truth and blame everyone else for the bruise. Beverly set her purse on the counter. Charlie, you look upset. Maybe you misunderstood something. I almost smiled. She didn't even know what I'd found, but she was already preparing my confusion for me. I understood enough, I said. David looked trapped. Dad, whatever you saw, I can explain. Good, because I'd love an explanation. His mouth opened, then closed. Beverly stepped in before he could fail. What David means is there may have been paperwork in motion before Dorothy passed. We were trying to help. You were under stress. We thought it would be wise to prepare some things. I looked straight at her. By trying to enter the box before me, that hit. David's head snapped up. Beverly's perfect posture stiffened. They hadn't expected the bank to tell me. Beverly drew a breath. You went through security records? No, the bank manager showed me after I asked who tried to get in. David turned to her. You said they wouldn't tell him that. She turned on him so fast I almost flinched. Then she caught herself and laughed softer. David, please. This is exactly why we didn't want to upset your father. Everything's getting twisted. Your father, not Dad now, a small change, but full of distance. I stood up slowly. My knees ached, but I stood tall anyway. Then let's untwist it. Tell me why you went to that bank. Tell me why you brought legal papers. Tell me why my signature appears on documents I never signed. And then, Beverly, tell me why you wrote that once Dorothy was gone. I'd be too confused to fight you. David made a broken sound. Beverly went still, dangerous still. For a moment, I thought she might deny it. Instead, she said, you read my email. It was printed in my wife's box. David dropped the flowers. They hit the floor with a soft crackle, one lily bending sideways. He looked at Beverly like he was seeing her for the first time and not liking what he saw. You told me Dad was paranoid. You told me Dorothy only kept copies because she wanted control. Beverly turned to him, voice urgent. David, not now. No, I said. Now is exactly the right time. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. Part of me was scared. Part of me felt strangely calm. The kind of calm that comes when fear finally burns long enough to become anger. David dragged both hands over his face. Dad, I didn't know about all of it. There it was. Not innocence, not even honesty yet. Just the beginning. How much did you know? He looked at the floor. We were behind on money. Beverly jumped in. Everyone's behind on money. I ignored her. How far behind? David swallowed. More than I told you, more than I told Dorothy. That didn't surprise me. David had always hidden bad news until it got too big to ignore. When did this start? I asked. A year ago, he said. My consulting work slowed down. Credit cards got high, and the mortgage became difficult. Beverly said we had options to protect the family, but Dorothy refused to listen. Protect the family? I repeated. Yes, Beverly said, and now the sweetness dropped away. You and Dorothy were sitting on assets, a paid-off house, the garage business, savings, a safety deposit box full of who knows what. Meanwhile, your son was drowning. Good parents help. Good parents help. That sentence would have made me feel guilty once. Now it made my skin crawl. Dorothy and I had helped David more times than I could count. Small loans, business advice, emergency money when he overspent. Help in our family had become a door that never closed, but this wasn't help. This was hunger wearing family's face. I looked at David again. Did you plan to take my house? No, he said too quickly. Then his eyes darted to Beverly. I saw the truth right there, not in his words, but in the fear behind them. Beverly folded her arms. No one was taking your house. We were restructuring things by forging my signature. Those were draft documents. By telling the bank I was confused. We were trying to avoid delays. I stared at her. Your mother-in-law was barely buried. She gave a cold shrug. Life doesn't pause because people are sentimental. The room tilted for just a second. Some people say cruel things when they're angry. Beverly said cruel things like reading the weather report. David looked horrified. Beverly. But she was beyond caring. She'd lost the mask, and people like that don't rush to pick it up. She pointed at the papers. Let's stop pretending, Charlie. Dorothy never trusted us. She hoarded everything. She kept David tied to guilt for years. And yes, we went to the bank because we knew she'd hidden something that could either save us or destroy us. Her voice sharpened on those last words. Destroy you? I asked. She realized too late she'd said too much. David looked at her. What does that mean? Nothing, she said. It didn't sound like nothing. The fight between them was leaking into the room now. David took a shaky step back from Beverly. What does that mean? She looked at him with open irritation, like his confusion bored her. It means your mother tracked everything. It means she watched us. It means she didn't just mistrust me, David. She was building a case. A case. That word sat heavy in the air. My mind went back to Dorothy's letter. Money taken, signatures copied, plans discussed behind our backs, and that line about David not understanding what Beverly had done in his name. Dorothy hadn't just been protecting me, she'd been protecting David too, from his own wife. I didn't say it yet, I just watched. David took another step back from Beverly. What case? She looked at him with open irritation. Stop acting surprised. Your mother tracked the transfers, the garage account, the line of credit, the business loan. David stared. You told me the business loan was legal. My voice came out flat. What business loan? Neither answered. So I asked louder. What business loan? David's face crumpled. Dad, Beverly spoke instead. We used the garage property as leverage. I felt something inside me go cold and hard. My garage. The little brick building on Oak Street with the blue sign and the bell over the office door. You had no right, I whispered. It was supposed to be covered before anyone noticed. Anyone? You mean Dorothy or me? David finally looked straight at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears, weak tears, late tears. Dorothy found out 3 months ago. I closed my eyes. 3 months. Dorothy had known for 3 months and said nothing to me. She'd carried it alone, gathered her proof, and waited. Maybe hoping David would confess. Maybe not wanting to break my heart before she had to. When I opened my eyes, Beverly was reaching for the papers. I moved faster than she expected and snatched them first. Don't touch those. Her voice turned sharp. Those papers are about family matters. Yes, I said mine. That's when we heard the car doors outside, then footsteps on the porch. Heavy footsteps. David turned toward the sound like he'd been shot. Beverly's face went white. Who is that? I asked. Neither moved. Then someone knocked on my door, not pounding this time. Professional, controlled. I walked to the front door and opened it. 2 men in suits stood on my porch. The older one held up a badge. Mr. Mitchell, I'm Detective Johnson. This is Detective Brown. We'd like to ask you some questions about your late wife's safety deposit box and some concerns that have been brought to our attention. I looked back at David and Beverly in my kitchen. David looked like he wanted to disappear. Beverly looked like she was calculating her next move. Come in, I said. The detectives entered and immediately noticed the tension in the room. Detective Johnson took in the scene quickly. The papers on the table, the dropped flowers, the way David and Beverly were standing apart from each other. We received a call from Patricia Robinson this afternoon, Detective Johnson said. She indicated there may be evidence of financial fraud involving forged signatures and property manipulation. I nodded. Patricia was my wife's lawyer. Dorothy left instructions with her. We'd like to see what you found in that box, if you're willing. I spread the papers out on the kitchen table. The forged signature, the property drafts, the printed emails. The detectives studied them carefully while David sat down hard in a chair and Beverly remained standing, arms crossed. Mrs. Mitchell, Detective Johnson addressed Beverly. These emails appear to come from your account. Would you like to explain the reference to Mr. Mitchell being too confused to fight after his wife's death? Beverly's jaw tightened. Those emails are taken out of context. What context would make property fraud appropriate? She didn't answer. Detective Brown looked at David. Mr. Mitchell, can you tell us about this business loan that used your father's garage as collateral? David's voice came out barely above a whisper. I thought it was temporary. Beverly said we could fix everything before Dad found out. But your mother did find out? David nodded miserably. She confronted us 3 months ago. She said she was changing her will to protect Dad, and how did your wife react to that? David looked at Beverly, then back at the detective. She was angry. She said we couldn't let Dorothy lock us out. The room went quiet. Detective Johnson made notes while Detective Brown kept watching Beverly. Mrs. Mitchell, Detective Brown said, we're going to need you to come with us for questioning. There are serious concerns about financial fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Beverly's control finally cracked. This is ridiculous. David signed everything willingly. Charlie's house wasn't going anywhere. We were just trying to solve our problems by forging his signature. Those were drafts. By lying to the bank about his mental capacity. She didn't answer. Detective Johnson stood. Beverly Mitchell, you're under arrest for suspicion of financial fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. As they let her out, Beverly turned back to look at me one last time. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked exactly like what she was. Not polished, not perfect, not misunderstood. Just a woman who'd thought she could steal from her family and get away with it. After they left, David and I sat in the quiet kitchen. The dropped flowers still lay on the floor between us. Dad, he said finally, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. I believed he meant it. But sorry and changed aren't the same thing. I know you are, son, but love isn't permission anymore. You're going to have to earn back what you threw away, he nodded, crying. I know your mother left you a path back, but it's not going to be easy. You'll work with Patricia to fix what you can fix, pay back what you can pay back, and prove you can be the man she always hoped you'd become. And if I do that, I looked at him, this boy who'd once asked me a million questions in my garage, now a man who'd have to find his own answers. Then maybe we can rebuild what we had. But it starts with truth, David. From here on out, nothing but truth. Outside, I could hear life going on. Cars passing, neighbors walking dogs, the ordinary sounds of people living ordinary lives. But inside my kitchen, with Dorothy's evidence still spread across the table and her wedding ring in my pocket, I felt something I hadn't felt in 6 months. Peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. Dorothy had protected us both, even from the grave. The house was safe, the garage was safe, and maybe if David meant what he said, our family could be safe too, just like Dorothy always planned. Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones planning to hurt you the deepest, but a smart man prepares for storms even when the sky looks clear. Family isn't just blood, it's trust earned through actions, and when that trust breaks, love without boundaries becomes the most dangerous weapon of all.